There we go. The audio wasn't configured correctly. I'm glad we fixed that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Matt Johnson with SFREP here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And today we're going to be talking about Appraise-It Pro. So whether you're coming over from another software vendor to Appraise-It Pro, or if you're coming over from Appraise-It Classic to Appraise-It Pro, hopefully we're going to kind of give you the primer that you're going to need in order to get started with the software. So first of all, a couple of things before we get too far into this. If you've never done one of these webinars with us on YouTube, down at the bottom in the lower right-hand corner over here, there's going to be a couple of icons, one of which looks like two brackets. If you click on that, that's going to make the video go full screen, which will make things easier for you to see, but you will lose the chat. So just keep that in mind. There is also like an elongated rectangle that will put YouTube, sorry, I have allergies. That will put YouTube into theater mode. So you'll get the benefits of having a larger video, but it's not, you'll still have the chat and it'll move from the right-hand side down to below. Okay. So, if you have any questions as we go, just go ahead and drop them into the chat. Now, if you're watching this after the fact, then what you can do is you can email us directly, training@sfrep.com. That'll get you directly in touch with me. Or if you need more immediate assistance, you can email tech@sfrep.com or call them 7 days a week at 800-644-4051. Okay? So, like I said, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them into the chat or email me. I'll be happy to answer any of them for you. So let's go ahead and we're going to take a look at, hold on. This may not be configured correctly either. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. Okay. Here it is. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started here. Now, you'll notice if you're moving over from the old Appraise-It Classic, you can run Appraise-It Pro and Appraise-It Classic side by side at the same time. As you can see, I have them here. So if you want that extra time to kind of move over from Appraise-It Classic over to Appraise-It Pro, this can be very helpful to you. Now, if you're moving over from another software, of course, you'll be jumping straight into Appraise-It Pro. You don't even need to worry about what Appraise-It Classic is. It's just the older version of our software that a lot of people are still using and are still migrating over to the new Appraise-It Pro. But we're going to be dealing with Appraise-It Pro during this video, so I'm going to go ahead and crank up Appraise-It Pro. Now, you're not going to see the splash screen that comes up because that comes up over on my other monitor, but in just a second, Appraise-It Pro will launch here. And when it launches, we're going to be in an area called the backstage. And you can kind of think of the backstage as, it's a starting point. I kind of think of it as like a super file menu, and I'll show you why I say that here in a couple minutes, but for now, just know that Microsoft calls it the backstage. I guess they like the theater reference. But this is kind of a starting point before you go into the main show kind of thing, which would be where you're editing your report. In the backstage or on the left-hand side, you have a couple of menu options: welcome, new, open, search, and settings. We have some others here that are ghosted out because we don't have a report open right now. I don't really go over these because they are actually duplicated in the main part of the program. So, they're pretty self-explanatory what they do. And then finally, we have new window and exit. New window will open up a new instance of Appraise-It Pro. That way you can have more than one version of Appraise-It Pro open at the same time, something you couldn't do with Appraise-It Classic. So you can have multiple reports open on multiple different monitors or however you want to do it, copy and paste back and forth, things like that. And of course, exit the program. It's the same thing that the X in the upper right-hand corner also does. So up here on the left, we have welcome, new, open, search, and settings. If that sounds familiar, that's kind of the lineup that's in the file menu in most other programs, including Appraise-It Classic, which is why I call this the super file menu. As a matter of fact, if I click on this little arrow up here at the top left, it's going to take me to the main editing window for Appraise-It Pro, and I don't have a report open at the moment. So this is all just blank, but you'll see to get back to the backstage, I actually click on the file menu and it takes me back here. So that's kind of why I call it the super file menu. Now, the part that you'll be in when you first run the program at all times, whenever you run it, is going to be the welcome area. And what this is just a way for us to communicate with you, send you some information without having to bug you with an email or a call or anything like that. So as long as you're online, this will get updated automatically. You see the last time we updated it was earlier this month on the 9th. So, and prior to that, it was in August. So, every few months we'll put something in here when it's important. Also over here on the left, now there won't ever be any images or GIFs or anything like that in here that'll distract you. It'll always just be text like this. Next is new. If you are coming over from Appraise-It Classic, this is basically the file new menu. It's the same thing. And when you come into new, this is where you can start a blank new report from, whether that be a default, not skeleton, what we call template. So if it's a default template, or if you have made some templates for use later, they will also show up here. So just like in the old file index, this is showing you all the different report types that you can open up. And if you need to search for something, you can. So I can search for, say, 2055. This will show me all of, I don't even have to hit enter. It's going to show me all of the 2055 reports. And there are a bunch of them because there are, and some of them will show up, the same report will show up in multiple locations. So you can see that it shows up here under UAD. It also shows up here. Whoop, I did not mean to do that. I think I accidentally double clicked. So let me go back here, close this. Nope, I don't. Go back over here. Okay, so it shows up here. So this is the UAD. And then down here, you see it shows up under Fannie Mae. It also shows up under Freddie Mac. And then the other versions of the 2055 are also going to show up here too, including non-lender versions. And there's something going on with my mouse where it's double clicking things. So let me go back in here, close this. No, that's my mouse. It's not the actual program. For some reason, my mouse is double clicking things. And then there's the quantitative analysis report as well. And this, this is like the old 1997 version, the pre-2005 version of the 1004. And we keep it under legacy forms because some people still use it. Some people still use it for non-lender work or whatever, and also backwards compatibility. So if you've had any old Appraise-It Classic reports that were based on that skeleton, then you would be able to open them up in Appraise-It Pro. And if I want to go back and see everything that there is, I can just click on the X here, and I'm back to the full list. Under frequently used, this is of course the most frequently used skeletons report types that I use. And if I click on, say, the UAD 1004, I've already created some templates here that I can use, some personal templates. And I'll go over how those work here a little bit later. But just know that if you want to just open up the default template, and for right now, think of a template as basically what skeletons were in Appraise-It Classic. They are different, and I'll go over what those differences are. But for right now, they accomplish roughly the same thing. So when I click on that over here, I'll have the different templates. In this case, I've made templates for individual towns, but I can also make templates for individual lenders or AMCs or banks or whatever you want to make them for. You just create them and name them. The cool thing about a template is nothing special. It is just a regular report file that has been pre-prepped by you and then gets promoted to template status. But at its heart, it's just a regular report file. It just gets promoted and put into a different place. So if I want to open up a report, I can either double click here to open up the default skeleton, or default template, or I can come over here and I can double click on the template to open it up. If I do open the default and this checkbox down here is checked at the bottom, include suggested forms in the default template. If that is checked, which it is by default, then it's going to open up a blank template with some of the report, like some of the forms and addenda that I'm going to need in most cases. So like my mapping addenda, photo addenda, stuff like that, some extra comp pages. But if you just want to open up a nice clean template and build everything yourself, you can uncheck this when you open it up. Now, unchecking that will have no effect on any of these templates that have been created previously by you. Next over here on the left is open. You probably won't come in here too often, except maybe to come in here to recent reports. This will be your last 20 or so reports. And this can be really, really handy if you need to go back to a report you were working on a day or two ago and you don't want to go through the hassle of actually searching for it. You can come in here to recent reports and just, find it here in the list and then double click it to open it up. On the left-hand side over here under report, we have open report, open classic report, and open MISMO document. This is probably not the way you're going to generally open up reports, but it's available to you if you want. You can open up a regular Appraise-It Pro report or even an Appraise-It Classic report. However, all of those files will be indexed by the new indexer in Appraise-It Pro anyway, so most of the time you'll probably just search for something and open it up that way. But if you want to browse to it, you can. And then there's open MISMO document. Once again, not going to come in here probably too often because you can actually take old MISMO files. So if you're moving over for another software vendor, you can take your old MISMO XML files that you had been archiving and put them into a subfolder in Appraise-It Pro, and they will get indexed as well, because Appraise-It Pro can open up any Appraise-It Pro report, obviously, any Appraise-It Classic report, and it can open up any MISMO document as if they were Appraise-It Pro reports. And that can be really helpful when you're moving over from other software. You'll be able to have all of that data available to you in the form of the old MISMO XML files. We even distribute Appraise-It Pro to AMCs and lenders for use just as a regular MISMO reader. So if you know anybody that might be interested in that, you can just send them to MISMOviewer.com. MISMOVIEWER, MISMOviewer.com. That'll go to a special website that'll tell them how it works and how they can install it. And then finally, there's Open Template and Open Classic Skeleton. Probably won't use this too much often, but we do have this here for a specific reason. So when I started mentioning templates, one of your questions probably was, hey, are you guys going to automatically convert our old skeletons into templates? The answer to that question is no, mainly because in testing, we were doing that. And customers really didn't want us to when it came down to it, because they were bringing in old skeletons that they had forgotten about, that were dirty, that were broken, whatever. So what we do is we allow you to convert them over manually one by one, but we also want to encourage you to create brand new ones. One, so that you have nice, clean templates to begin with. And two, in creating those templates, you are going to get very familiar with Appraise-It Pro very quickly. So we really recommend you create new templates, but if you have really complicated skeletons that you want to convert over to templates, you don't want to retype a bunch of stuff, you can come in here and browse to it and open it. And if you need help with that, our tech support can show you how that works. Under search, now there is a companion webinar to this webinar called Appraise-It Pro Tips and Tricks. I think I'm doing it next week. It's kind of the part 2 to this webinar, and I do kind of show you how you can order all of these and delete and customize this. But for now, we're just going to leave it the way it is out of the box. And this is an exclusionary search. So the more stuff that you fill out in these little areas here, the more narrowed and targeted your search results are going to be. So if I hit search, it's just going to show me 3 reports that I have, because these just happen to be the reports that I have in Appraise-It Pro right now. I don't actually do actual appraisals with this. I'm mostly testing and doing other things like that. So, if I select it, you'll see that I can scroll out here to the right. So we'll pretend that I did a search. I came up with 3 results. When I highlight it, I can scroll out here to the right and see all the data that's kept in the database about that particular address, kind of like in Microsoft Excel. I can also sort them by any of these categories. And then if I single click on it, I will see a front view photo and some of the pertinent details about that particular report listed down here in the lower right-hand corner. And if I want to open it, I can either double click it or I can come down here to open report. There's also a work file associated with each report. I'll go over that in the Appraise-It Pro Tips and Tricks webinar. Finally, there's settings. And in here, if you like to tinker, you can come in here and start messing around and find some cool things about, that you want to change and make it your own. If you are a little bit gun shy with technology and stuff, you may want to wait and come in here only when you have one of our tech support people on the line with you. But if you like to tinker, come on in here and, you can make Appraise-It Pro yours. But if you do change something, you may want to jot down what it was, so that you know what you changed. All right, come back up here to new. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up a blank default 1004 template. So I'm going to select UAD Residential Appraisal Report, and I'm going to double click on Default Template. And now that's going to take me to the main editing area, and it has opened up that blank report and it's ready for me to begin filling out. And whether you're coming over from another software package or if you're coming over from Appraise-It Classic, this should look very familiar to you. Appraise-It Pro is a true what's called WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get, WYSIWYG. So this is a direct representation of the actual printed out form as if you were going to fill it out with a typewriter. Although when you do print it, it won't have these colors. These are just in the actual editor to kind of denote what type of fields they are. If you're wondering what type of fields they are, they'll be in the lower right-hand corner when you're not in a field that requires any type of formatting. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. In this editing area, in the center, you've got the main editing area. And you may have noticed we have 1, 2, 3, 4 panels on both the left and the right. Now, I'm going to go over each of these panels, but the main thing I want you to pay attention to, especially if you're moving over from Appraise-It Classic, is this first panel, the report panel, because this is the key to learning Appraise-It Pro if you're moving over from Classic. And it's the way that you build your reports. So instead of building your report when you're done and you kind of construct it at the end when you're ready to quote unquote print it, whether you're printing it to PDF or XML or paper or whatever, in Appraise-It Pro, you build the report at the beginning and as you go along. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to give us a little bit more room so we can see what's going on. So I'm going to make this validator panel a little bit smaller. And this right here is basically the table of contents for this particular report. So if something shows up over here, then it should be filled out. If you decide that you're not going to use something, let's say in this particular report, it's up on the side of a mountain, so you don't need to fill out the flood map, then what you'll want to do is select flood map, click on remove, say yes, and get it out of there. Because you only want things in here that are actually in the report. That way you can at a glance know exactly what's contained in this report. You don't have anything in there that's blank, so you don't know, well, did I fill that out or not, and have to open it up. This should be kept nice, neat, and tidy, so if you do have anything that you're not going to be using, go ahead and get rid of it. Now, let's say you want to actually reorder this. Maybe you like to put the sketch at the beginning of the report. What you can do is you can just simply click and then drag it up to the very beginning of the report. And now the sketch is at the beginning. Maybe you like to have the location map after that. Click and drag that up. Whoops, I didn't grab it. There we go. Click and drag it up. And there you go. There's the location map at the beginning. So not only is this the table of contents of you're setting what's in the report, you're actually setting the order of the report as well. So once you set your order here, that's how it's going to print out, whether you print it to PDF or you're printing it to paper. And remember, when you create a Mismo XML, it does create a PDF version of the report that gets embedded inside of that Mismo XML file. So this will set the order of that printout. Now, I've shown you how you can remove things, but what about adding things? Well, there's 2 ways to add reports, add forms to, or addenda to the report. The first way is by coming up here to add in the little toolbar up here. So I've already shown you remove. If I click on add, maybe I want to add I don't think we're using it anymore, but I'm just going to go ahead and do the COVID addendum. So we'll type out COVID. Here are all the COVID addendums. I want to put the desktop one in there. Let's say I want to put it in here after the location map. This right here gets duplicated over here. So this is nothing more than what's over here. And what I can do is I can click and just simply drag that in here after location map and then click save and close. And there it is. So that's how you search for something. COVID, I did a search for COVID. If I want to look at everything else again, I just click on the X and there you go. Now in here, there's also a way that you can convert from one report type to another very easily. I'll go over that in the Appraise-It Pro tips and tricks. So make sure that you show up for our webinar next week on that. Now, the second way that you can add a report or addenda to your, the second way you can add a form or an addenda to your report is by these little pluses right here. So you'll notice that there are some icons to the left of each of these headings, of most of them. So anytime you see the star means that that is the primary report type, cannot be removed or deleted. It can be changed, but it can't be removed or deleted. If you see a padlock icon, that means that that particular addenda or form is required for the proper operation of the report, so it cannot be removed. The rest of these can be removed, and you'll see some of these have little pluses next to them, and that means that you can actually add additional versions of that particular addenda. So if I wanted to put a second sketch in there, I can just click on sketch, And now I have sketch 2 available to me. If I want to get rid of it, just select it and click on remove, say yes, and it's gone. If I want comps 7 through 9, I can click on plus. Now it's going to add comps 7 through 9, and it's going to add the photo pages for comps 7 through 9 as well. And if I want to look at them, all I have to do is double click here, and it's going to pull it up here in the little tabbed interface, kind of like a web browser up here at the top. And when I'm done, I can just click on the X. That's not removing it from the report. It's just meaning that I don't need to look at it any longer. In much the same way as if you close obviously if you close a website on your browser, it doesn't remove it from the internet. It's just you're not looking at it anymore. And of course, if I want to get rid of 7 through 9, I just click and then click on remove. Now, very important, in Appraise-It Classic, there was a limit. I think it was 15 comps, maybe 12 or 15. Can't remember which. There was a limit there, and to add additional comparables, it was a pain in the butt. That is no longer the case in Appraise-It Pro. You can put as many comp listings, whatever you want, into your report. Now, just keep in mind, the more that you put in there, the more photos are going to go in, which means it's going to make the size of your report get bigger. So keep that in mind. Some of these AMCs and lenders and these portals have ridiculously low size restrictions. So keep that in mind. Also, wherever you're sending your report may have a limit on comps as well. So make sure you know what that is. But as far as we're concerned, we're not going to limit you in any way. All right. So that's the long and short of the report panel. Next, we're gonna hit the rest of these pretty fast because we're already at 22 minutes in. Next is the validator. It does exactly what it sounds like. And there are 2 types of validation going on, or two types of validation available. The first one is real-time validation. Easiest way to see that at work is up here in the state field. If I type in NC for the state, it is perfectly happy with that. Even if I come up here and I do PR for Puerto Rico, it's happy with that. If I put in GU for Guam, it is perfectly happy with that. But if I come up here and I type in BC, that's a Canadian province, not a US state. So when I tab out, it's going to turn red. So this is just an example of it at work. This is also checking your math and your formatting elsewhere in the report. Like if I come down here to the grid and location, and I put in here mountains, well, that's not in proper UID formatting, so that's going to turn red. And then one thing to keep in mind is the rule set that it's checking everything under. Most of the time that's going to be UCDP, which is the regular UAD. However, if you're doing an FHA report, you'll want to pull down this menu and select FHA. The rule set is oh so slightly different for FHA. Not very, but just slightly different. So you'll want to make sure that you're checking under that rule set. It will remember whatever is selected in this. So make sure that when you go from one report to another, you make sure that you select the proper rule set that it's going to be checking under. And then finally, when you're done, not before, but when you're done with your report, you're ready to deliver it, you're going to want to run one more validation pass, and this one's going to be the comprehensive validation, and you'll invoke that by clicking on the validate button. Now, I'm not going to do it right now because that is just going to cause everything to go haywire because I don't have anything in this report, but just make sure that you do that before you actually deliver your report. Now, you'll notice that when I had the improper state in there, that I got a hard stop here and it said state. And if I select that, it will tell me what I did wrong. State must be a valid 2-letter code, US state abbreviation, example NC. So I'm like, okay, well, I made a mistake there. So if I want to get back to change that, all I have to do is simply double click here and it's going to jump me back to that particular cell. I'm going to change that to be NC and there we go. Now it's happy. No more red stop signs. Over here on the right are the responses. And by the way, these panels, they can be removed and put on other monitors and resized and everything. We go over that in our Appraise-It Pro Tips and Tricks webinar, which I'm doing next week. So responses. I really love how they implemented responses in Appraise-It Pro. And Appraise-It Classic, basically you had the F key bar at the top. We give you the F keys in Appraise-It Pro, but there's no longer an F key bar at the top. So if I come in here to city, I've set some of these up already previously. And some of them you'll see here do have F keys associated with them. So if I hit F7, it'll put Monroe into the city field. So I hit F7, there it is, there's Monroe. But the other ways that I can put Monroe in there is I can start typing it, M-O, and now it knows I'm in Monroe, and I can tab out. So you can see that if you really set up all of these responses, you can really burn through a report very quickly by just typing the first few letters of the sentence or the word or phrase that you had saved in there. I can also just simply come over here with my mouse, double click, and put the city in that way. Or I can also hit F2 and I can select it from a list. So if I want to stay on my keyboard, I could do this as well and just say, okay, Charlotte, boom, there's Charlotte. Now, in the responses tab, now, if you need to set up let me go over this real quick. If you need to set up a response, it's really simple. Let's say that I need to put in here Belmont. So I'm going to type in BELMONT, and I'm going to come over here to Manage Responses. It's already got Belmont in there. I can give it a title if I want to. Generally, you're only going to use the title if it is a multi-sentence, like a paragraph response, so that you can kind of sum it up in one title. But when it's just one word, you can just leave it as Belmont. I am not going to assign it an F key. Well, yeah, I am. I'm going to make it F9. Hit Save, then hit Close, and there it is. Now Belmont is in there, and I've assigned it to F9. So if I hit the F9 key, it's going to put Belmont in there for me. And if I want to get rid of one, I just simply click it, click on Delete Response, say yes, and it's gone. I can also do that from Manage Responses. Now, you may have noticed that there is a tab down here. If you had an eagle eye, that's because there's actually 5 panels here, not 4. One of them is kind of hidden, and it's this tabbed. It's tabbed under the Response panel, and that's Help. And this is mainly tabbed because most of you are not going to use this. We've been doing UAD for many years now, and you probably know all the formatting by heart anyway. But if you have a trainee or you have somebody who's new and helping you fill out reports, they can come in here to the Help tab, and every single one of these fields has a help text that will tell them what they need to fill out in there. And you can use it yourself if you are not really 100% sure on how you need to fill something out. And there is a way that you can actually tab all of these. So if you're on a low resolution monitor, you could just stack all of these over here on the left-hand side and tab them out and make it, give you a lot more space to work with in the main editing area. The final panel is the Format panel. And when you are not in a formatted field, the Format panel is simply going to show the color key. So you can see that green means it's a formatted panel. Gray is the active panel. Inactive panels are light blue. Darker blue is extended comment field, warned fields, etc., etc. So to see this at work, now that's what it is that's what it's showing when you're not in a regulated field, in a field that requires special formatting. Once you enter a field that does require special formatting, so we'll go maybe View. Now this is going to turn into the UAD helper. It's the same thing you had in Appraise-It Classic, or if you're in some other software, this may have been a pop-up window that came up or an overlay or something like that. In Pro, we decided that we didn't want to do an overlay because we knew that people were going to get very familiar with UAD and we wanted to stay out of your way. So we set it up as a panel that stays out of your way, and it's there if you need it. But a lot of us already know what this formatting is by heart at this point. So we do allow you to just type directly into the field. And then when you tab out of it, if you got something wrong, it'll warn it and turn it red. But if you got it right, you can just move on with your life. Now, you don't even have to come over here if you don't want to. And you can see that when you're in the field, if you want to stay on the keyboard, so let's say I'm in the field right now, I can hit F12 to jump over to there, and I can use the keyboard to make changes if I want to. I like to use the mouse, but some people like to stay on the keyboard, so that's available to you. And you can jump back and forth by hitting the F12 key. I think it was something different in Appraise-It Classic. It may have been like Alt-Enter or something like that. So that is a change that's a little bit different from Appraise-It Classic. So up here on the menu bar up here, it does use the updated ribbon bar interface that became popular with Windows 10 and is used in Microsoft Office and a lot of other programs. The ribbon bar is just an icon version of a regular menu selection. Like usually you'd have pull down menus, but now we just have the ribbon bar. Up here at the top, there's Home, Edit, View. Edit is going to be your editing stuff, spell checking, things like that. View is going to be the layout. If you happen to do something like this and you're like, well, how did I do that? I don't even know how I did that. And you try to put it back and then now you've done this and everything goes wrong. Just come to the View menu, hit Reset to Default, say yes, and it'll put everything back into factory defaults. Services are internet-based services or programs. So programs that are going to go out to the internet and get dynamic data, they're going to be under services. Tools are going to be local programs that run on your computer. So your sketching, your image management, your comp management, stuff like that. Orders, this is how you're going to send reports. So you can create Mismo, create ACI Sky exports. And I'll go over why this exists in our tips and tricks. But it's basically because of these guys not doing something. We'll go over that. The AI Ready ENV uploader, and then the Total Connect for the Mercury network, which we, by the way, are, I believe, the only software vendor that's directly integrated with Mercury network, other than, of course, Alamode. And then finally, there's the support tab. If you need help, this is where you can come. Check for updates, check service status, do a refer a friend, send some feedback. Don't use this for tech support, though. There is a separate tech support section where you can email or chat. And then links to all of our social media and web and blogs and stuff like that is over here as well. And if you, need to get in contact with us, you can come over here to tech support. You can email directly. You can also just email tech@sfrep.com if you want to do it that way. You can start a chat, and this is also where they'll come in. They'll send you in here if they need to log into your computer to work on it for some reason. Of course, we can't just log into your computer willy-nilly. We have to actually get your permission. So that's what that is. Okay, and one last thing I want to show you, and then we'll take some questions. So if you have any questions, go ahead and get them in now in the chat. Or you can send an email, like I said, to training@sfrep.com. The one last thing I want to show you while you guys get any questions that you have in typed in is down here in the lower right-hand corner. This is our server status. This is a real-time dynamic little area that will show you real-time what our servers are doing. And so if, let's say, street maps went down or something, or maybe flood mapping was having issues, this green dot could either turn yellow for degraded service or red if the service is not working at all. And if you see that, you can click on it and it will say what the problem is. In this case, all services are online. But if I click on that, it's going to open up a web page. I'll pull that over here. And that web page is status.sfrep.com. And it'll show you, okay, what's the problem? It'll show it right here. And then it'll give you like an estimated time of resolution. Okay. I think that's all I really ever go over. I don't go over the comp manager or the image manager. I do have separate webinars for those. And for those of you coming over from Classic, image manager and comp manager, the lender database, neighborhood database, all that stuff is the same in Appraise-It Pro as it was in Classic, so there's no real reason to show you that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's why I don't really go over them in this. Does anyone have any questions? Any questions? I'm going to assume no, but I will stay in the chat for a little bit longer after the webinar just in case. But once that time has passed, like I said before, you can just simply send an email to training@sfrep.com, or you can contact our tech support directly at tech@sfrep.com or 800-644-4051. I'm sure you all know that number by heart now. And by the way, pro tip, whether you call that number or our sales number, they both go to the same place. So you can just learn one of those telephone numbers, and that's all you have to really worry about. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming to this webinar. We'll have another one next week, which will be the part 2 to this webinar, which will be Appraise-It Pro tips and tricks. I really appreciate your time. I hope all of you have a great week coming up. I had an amazing weekend prior and got another great one coming up. It's finally cooled off here in Charlotte, which is nice. So hopefully it has wherever you are too. I know the Southwest is a little bit warm right now, but I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your week, and take care and stay safe out there.